Hi folks, I'm Niki from the University of Wolverhampton in Stafford, and I'm here to help you keep an element of creativity in your homeschooling curriculum. Today's tutorial is for a creative photographic technique, and whilst a smartphone will work fine for some of these exercises, you're going to need something like this DSLR camera, or a camera where you can manually change settings and ideally lenses in order to get the best results from this particular process. The technique that we'll be looking at today is called Bokeh. There's no direct English translation for this word, but literally from the Japanese it means quality of blur. You will need a camera with manual settings, some black card, a scalpel, tape, ideally masking tape or washi tape, something that peels off easily without leaving a residue, a light source, and ideally something repetitive such as fairy lights, a subject, model, human, or a well-trained pet. A room or space with relatively low light. We'll start by looking at how to control which elements of a photograph are and aren't in focus. You may be aware that there are three main settings on a camera that enable us to control just how much light is recorded. Light is a primary resource in photography, with the word literally meaning drawing with light. The settings that I'm talking about join together to form the exposure triangle. Where we adjust one setting, we'll compensate with the others in order to get the light balance just right for the perfect exposure. For example, a higher ISO, the camera sensor's sensitivity to light, may require a shorter shutter speed, the physical shutter in front of the sensor which opens and closes to determine quantities of light and whether motion is frozen, fast, or recorded as a blur, slow. Final setting is aperture, controlling the size of the hole inside your camera's lens, which again controls just how much light enters. However, crucially in this case, it also controls depth of field, or how much of the image we allow to be in focus. Aperture appears as an f-stop, a number with an f standing for focal ratio in front of it. The trick with photography is to remember that everything is back to front. So in the case of apertures, big numbers mean small holes mean more focus. We're going to be shooting with our aperture wide open so as to blur our background out. Let's try a simple exercise in order to practice. I'll be shooting in aperture priority mode using this 40mm lens, which has a maximum aperture of f2.8, which I've already set my camera to. The camera, being in aperture priority mode, is going to control the shutter speed on my behalf based on the amount of available light. I've chosen to start with an ISO of 400 and adjust it if need be. On this particular camera, aperture is recorded as AV. Other cameras may use A or other abbreviations. The trick to blurring out a background is ensuring that there's as much distance between the subject and background and as little distance between the subject and camera as possible. Your lens will only allow you to get so close to the subject before it fails to focus though, so you'll need to determine this distance for yourself depending on what you're shooting with. We're looking to get the subject pin sharp and the background soft and creamy. This is the start of your bokeh. Try this outside under a canopy of leaves and you'll see little points of light filtering through the trees. If you get your bokeh just right, these points will be recorded as soft circles or possibly hexagons depending on your lens. These points of light will take the shape of your aperture, which is made up of a series of adjustable overlapping plates, sometimes with straight, sometimes with curved edges. You could also try this outside at night. Any light from traffic or street lights will react in exactly the same way. It's great for really atmospheric portraits. Because bokeh is formed by the shape of our lens aperture, it's possible to change the shape for creative effects by making a mask. This sits in front of the glass, only allowing light in through a hole slightly smaller than your widest possible aperture. Now this will vary from lens to lens, but a good rule of thumb is under 1 centimetre. It's a good idea to start simple. Secure your mask to the outside of your lens, being careful to leave your focus ring free and making sure you don't stick anything to the lens glass. We want to avoid touching this as much as possible. Now we're ready to shoot. To quickly test whether or not your mask's an appropriate size, try pointing your camera at a set of fairy lights and unfocusing the lens. You should find that each unfocused light takes the shape of your mask. If you have a light leak, make sure your mask fits right up to the edge of your glass to block it out. Once you know that works, you can practice focusing on a foreground subject. Now these make fantastic portraits, but since I don't have anyone to photograph right now, I'm going to use this. Remember to put as much distance between your subject and background as possible and get as close to the subject as you can. Focus, and I hope you'll be pleased with your results. Follow our Facebook page for more creative tutorials for all ages, coming soon.